Hi, Emma. Welcome to the webinar. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on today.
Oh, we are so excited. I'm so happy to spend some time with you and get to know a little bit about what you've done. You've had such an incredible history in tennis. And I want to start out by just saying, I mean, you've gone from being a coach on the court to now managing over 130 courts. Do you remember the first day you stepped on the court and coached?
I do, and it's quite funny. So I'm still in contact with my coach from being a child today, who, yeah, she's on Instagram, follows what I'm doing, which is really cool. But yeah, I was just helping out the little ones as a teenager, and I think it's the beauty of having that first job to be able to help out and be around people. And yeah, I remember it vividly, and it feels like a long time ago now. But yeah, it's been a journey since.
Wow. So your journey from going and just, coaching on one court, tell us a little bit
hmm
about how you got from one court to, tennis at Merton and all these different locations and all these different courts. What has that journey been like for you?
Yeah, so pretty much it was 8 years ago, in Wimbledon Park, and if you don't know it, this 20 court facility is stone's throw away from Wimbledon Championships. You can hear the roars of centre court from the courts, which is really cool for camps when they hear,
Yeah.
the pros playing on the other side of the lake. But one thing I noticed that there was no group coaching, and it was all individual coaching at the time. It's like, why are there not groups of kids playing and adults and so forth? So ultimately there was a gap in the market. I did a flyer drop, got in contact with the school, and yeah, the rest is history. So that was 8 years ago. So I developed my logo. I remember on Boxing Day, after just drawing out the logos and coming up with the colors, and and from there it's just been a journey. So it was from zero to 130 courts, and I'm quite lucky because not many people get the opportunity to build something and grow something to the scale that I have.
So did you go from one location to two to three, or did you go immediately from one to 11?
No, so it was myself coaching, and then it was in the same facility, Wimbledon Park, from one court to three courts, and then I took over another facility, and then as a coaching provider, and then when the tender kind of procurement came up for the whole of Merton, won the Merton contract, and then won another contract as well at similar times. So I dropped one of the other locations where it was a time where the business was scaling, and at the other location, I was just a coaching provider, not operator. So didn't really have the access or control to be able to facilitate the play growth, which is really important to kind of get those hand in hand with the coaching programs and grow both sides of it. So yeah, it kind of went one to two. I'm trying to do some maths now, to 13 and then to 25.
Wow. I'm assuming 7, 8 years ago, it was a little tougher to have technology and apps and everything kind of synchronized than
hmm
it is today. What were you
Yep.
using 7 and 8 years ago to handle all
You
of the
you
scheduling?
You're gonna laugh at this. So in terms of booking courts, they were still pen and paper in Wimbledon Park. In the little kiosk that we obviously operate and have the court bookings out from now, it was pen and paper. And yeah, if that sheet went missing, then we just all had to be nice to each other and figure it out on the courts. But it's baffling when you think that was only 8 years ago. And for the coaching programs, we did have Club Spark come through, and there's some different systems. But yeah, and then suddenly we went online probably a couple of years from then, so about 6 years ago. But I mean, you can say firsthand the technology that's been created and developed over the last 6 years. Yeah, it makes life so much easier and kind of brings us closer to the consumer as well, which is really key.
What was it like to hire your first assistant or your first coach to coach alongside of you? What did that look like?
Well, luckily for me, it was a friend, which is quite nice. A friend that was a teacher, primary school teacher. So she was absolutely fantastic with the little kids, brought that kind of law and order on the court, which sometimes coaches do struggle with a little bit. And yeah, it was just a really nice journey for her coming into tennis as well as obviously doing her teaching as a full-time job. And yeah, for me, it was perfect because we were developing the kids' tennis at the point, and then the adult program kind of came afterwards organically from there. So yeah, it's been a journey. Coaches come, coaches go, but it's the right mentality that kind of sticks really.
Yeah. So let's talk about players and programming
hmm
and
Yeah.
how do you keep players coming back? What first stops a player from coming back to play tennis in your opinion?
So, I mean, the last couple of years since obviously scaling that much, I always think of the customer journey from every single angle, from, if they're walking around the courts to if they're going on the website, from when they downloaded the Court Reserve app now, because we've got that. And I think, just if there is that journey that's fragmented, that's when there's problems happen. So if it's, if you can't book within 3 or 4 clicks, you're disinterested and you go somewhere else because, technology is great, but we've got to make it easy and competitive as other sports to be able to stay in tennis. So I always think, right, if I'm putting this online, is this actually just making it more complicated or is it making it easier for the customer to find programming and whatever we're doing? But also around the courts, just again, if they're looking at a notice board, can they scan a QR code or is it, too many stages for them to actually book? So just yeah, kind of making sure that's a smooth experience from every angle coming in.
That's amazing. So, do you find that parents will often be interested in tennis once they've watched their children and some of your programming? How do you get the parents involved in tennis?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting when you've got the parents on the side. It happens. I mean, to give you context, in Wimbledon Park alone, on Saturdays we see 150 kids. They come through the program just on Saturdays alone. So, we do pods of 32 red ball players and another pod of 32, and then orange and green and so forth. And I think just if they see their kids having fun, they're more likely to want to have fun with them as well. So I think, tennis is about learning the skill and learning to rally, but ultimately, if they see their kids are happy, they're going to want to replicate that happiness and just do some basic things with them outside of lessons. So I think just making sure that's the key factor of the fun before the teaching, and then the teaching is just a lot easier through there. And they are inspired. I think especially when the children get to like red or orange level, when they can start to rally. Some of the parents that have never played before, they're like, "Uh-oh, my kid's going to be better than me very soon. So I better start beginner classes, and then we can actually connect together and rally together." So it's a nice journey. And, obviously those conversations on the side and the emails coming out saying, if you want to play, then we do free tennis every Monday to Friday between 3 and 5 p.m. for families to play for free. So we do find that we get a lot of families coming down for that. And it's just, yeah, it's really nice to see because it's that second time they play a week, as we know, that's where they really get hooked on the sport.
Yes. And then what's the progression look like that, if I'm an adult and I've never hit a tennis ball before and I come
Yeah.
out to you guys, what does the progression
Yeah.
for me look like?
Yeah. So initially, the way that we get people in is with a meet and greet session. So this is a free session. They spend £10 to jump on it, but after the session, they get that £10 credit towards their first course. So it's a real nice way to make sure that when we're doing free trials, that people are actually turning up because there's some monetary commitment, and also then they book on. So we've got level 1 all the way through to level 6. So level 1 beginners, orange ball, service boxes pretty much, and then progressing all the way up to level 6, which is our advanced players, our club players, our ones that get very competitive on the court. So, but the purpose of the meet and greet is to literally just signpost and make them feel comfortable when booking, and that's always where. They look at the screen like, oh God, where am I? Am I improver level? Shall I be a beginner? I've not hit a ball in 3 years. So and it helps just connect with the so our head of coaching does that session and then signpost straight away, which is pretty nice. So that's our entry in.
Okay. And because you have 11 different locations, as
Yeah.
an adult, can I play at any 11 or do you have some type of membership that allows me to do just one or across the board, like an enterprise situation?
Yeah. Yeah, so you can play at any of the locations or you can play at one of the locations. So I think the beauty of having a borough and an umbrella of courts is that, we've got say 3 or 4 locations within 2 miles of each other. So, 3 or 4 kilometers. So if you say you can only play on a Tuesday night and there's not a session at one of the venues, you can jump and see if there's another venue and jump on straight away. So and again, being able to flick between the screens and make that easy on the app. Everyone loves an app, so it's kind of making it easy for them to be able to provide that service as well. And some people like to do, 2 different locations to meet more people, and that's really nice. So rather than kind of just with the same people, if they go down the road, they're going to meet other people, which just elevates their journey too.
Is there any kind of league or tournament format that you guys are using now that's really been successful for your adults and your juniors?
We've got so many tournaments, it's mad. Tournaments and leagues out of our ears. It's really good. I mean, I think, everybody in Wimbledon wants to play. So we've got the mass market. So they obviously want to compete, a lot of them too. So we actually run the LTA local tennis leagues. So we run those. And then we run Spin. So Spin do some leagues as well. And Spin we partner with to do a Friday night social. And I remember last year we we had 80 players on the app, just self-servicing, doing, just doing a social and then going to the pub. So it was amazing what technology can do now. And yeah, just for me, just seeing 10 courts of activity, there was a volunteer helping out, but it wasn't a coach-led session. Everyone was there just to meet people and play. So stuff like that's great. And then, we've got the LTA tournaments, sanctioned tournaments, which we run across the borough at 2 or 3 of our locations. And then our internal things. So, obviously seasonal stuff like Australian Open tournament and then a Wimbledon Whites tournament, obviously. But one thing looking at for later this year is to do a 1 point slam between the venues and to do like a culmination at Wimbledon Park. So I saw how that worked in Australia, and I've know a couple of providers that have done it there locally, and they said it's just fun. It's just a lot of social and fun. So watch this space on that one.
That's amazing. So, do you think at what point an adult decides, you know what, I want to play
Mm.
in a league or I want to play a tournament for the first time? What does that
Yeah.
look like to you guys as an instructor?
I think when the and it's always the serve, isn't it, right? It's always the serve which people
Yeah.
are like, oh God, I can rally, but I can't serve, so therefore I don't want to embarrass myself and play. But when they get confidence, even just to pop the ball in, it might not be the best serve, but if they can just do the technique a little bit and then just rally, then they'll play. I think one of the things we've developed in and put in recently is serving clinics, and we've found that that is a really cool way just to get that extra confidence for people that are maybe wanting to compete in summer leagues. So we put a session on this week and it was, yeah, we oversubscribed already. So it's a good problem. And it's all
Wow.
levels. So we'd had some, some absolute beginners. And then we got some level fours, level fives, learning to, refine, let's say, a slice serve or a kick serve and so forth. Because it's a bit of a static confidence building activity, serve return and, your arms dropping off by the end, but they've got the confidence to go out there and do it more. So we'll probably do more of those throughout the summer.
I love that because I mean, I play about 3 days a week, but I'm in 3 classes a week and we never
Yeah.
practice serves. And so
Yeah, it's
I
always the
never
last
get to play
15
in it.
minutes. It's always the last
Yes.
10 minutes, and it should be
Yes.
the first 10 minutes that's on. So, yeah, and there's obviously a need for people to be able to do it and want to do it. So, yeah, you can report that back to your club to say,
I
get
will.
some serving on.
I will for sure. So I know that you go all over the world and speak and coach and teach. Have you seen a difference in tennis where you are versus
Mhm.
around the world? Any teaching differences or
Yeah, I'd say it's really interesting going around and spending time in the US and going to Australia and different places. I think the one thing that I always come back from the US thinking customer service is always great, whether you're at a restaurant, a court, that value of just those people skills. So I think the US does that amazingly. It might be from restaurants and everything filtering down to courts, but that customer service is key. I think in the UK we're a bit introverted sometimes and too scared to have a conversation, while in the US, a bit more kind of proactive. And then in Australia, I think it's great. I mean, what they've got over there is they've got so many. I think their kids program is fantastic. So the kids program with Tennis Australia, it seems like there's such a buzz for the junior side, which I don't know if it's this style of coaching or what Tennis Australia are doing, but there's just a massive appetite for kids tennis there, which is great. So I think everywhere you go, you pick up bits. I'm sure you're the same when you go to different conferences and even around the States. I'm sure there's lots of different things that you pick up. But I always think, oh God, I like that energy. I like the way they've done that. I like that. And then you just, bring it all back and yeah,
yeah,
spread it all out, right? I think that's what one of the benefits about being global, really.
it's like the saying eat the fish leave the bones, right? You take one
Yep,
thing
yep,
away and just add it. So
yep,
well, let's talk about your facility, like maybe your
yep,
pro shop, some of that additional
yep,
revenue that you guys try and do. how
yep,
how do you make sure that people who may not be able to afford that average $2,000 a year can still come and
yep,
play tennis at
yep.
Merton?
Yeah, so I think one thing is we do have an affordable membership, which is it's very like £35 a year, and then a little bit more if you're a family. But if you really don't want to do that, you can be a non-member, which is fine. So you can still access the program, and then maybe down the road if you want to get a membership. You can be a member of one location or a member of all locations for the same price, like we said before, just to promote that inter-venue connection and yeah, making friends ultimately. And then if you don't have rackets, we've got Equip. I think I mentioned this to you a while ago, the Equip boxes. So the equipment boxes where you can just rent the rackets out for free in some locations. Other locations, it's a slight cost, but I think the biggest thing is people always walk around the courts and they see tennis going on. They're like, oh yeah, I've got a racket. And then maybe their partner's like, oh yeah, I used to have a racket, but then my dad sold it or something. And then, it's like, oh well, we could play, but you need to go to the shop to buy a racket. And it takes all that stress out of it. So we do that, and we find they get used a lot, which is great. So it's been a trial for the last year, and yeah, it's gone down really well. So we'll be kind of hoping that carries on. That's with our council that have put that in, but they're pretty happy with how it's gone so far.
Do you see players, they get excited, they're getting a little bit better, they buy the shoes,
Hmm.
they get the bag, they get the racket.
Hmm.
Is that something that you guys are trying to encourage them to do inside at your own pro shop? Do you try and,
Yep.
online sales is nuts, right? I mean, Amazon,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
many Amazon boxes I get in a week is insane.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
But there's nothing like trying to buy a pair of shoes to play on the court
Yep.
or buy a new
Yep.
racket. What's that experience
Yep.
like for your players?
Yeah, so I mean, we're connected really well with Wilson. They're our kind of main brand for clothing and for rackets, everything now. The 360 Wilson is the thing now. It's their kind of 2026 plan. And we're really lucky, so we can string on site. So, most of the coaches can string, which is great. So the players can actually learn about strings a bit as well and get their racket strung, and then just pick it up and go and play, which is better than having to go to a shop and come back. And then in terms of, people want to try rackets, we've got all the demos as well down there so they can do that. And we link directly with Wilson.com. So with us, they get a direct code to get a discount. So again, it's everything's to your door. It's really easy. And the final part is we've got a really cool tennis shop just up the road in Southfield. So they've just redone it. All Things Tennis, it's called. It was Wimbledon Park Sports, and it's incredible. I went in the other day. So, if you're wanting to, let's say, get some shoes or to get a new outfit, then, that's the place to go. And yeah, you always see it. People coming like, oh, you've been shopping, because then, especially this time of year, it's like the sun's out. Let's get a new tennis outfit. And yeah, I love that. I think it's like great, instead of having go and have 10 beers, go and get yourself a new outfit, a new racket, and it's a healthy choice, isn't it? So
That's right.
makes me
I
smile.
love that. Yes. When it comes to technology in, the rackets these days versus 8 years
Hmm.
ago and the shoes even, I mean, what does
Yeah.
that look like for you as a coach? How do you tell someone, how to choose the right racket or the right pair
Yeah.
of shoes?
Yeah. I think with shoes, it really is a personal preference. It's more when people are coming from their pair of running shoes to actually tennis shoes, it's easing in and, not being too heavy, maybe more of a recreational tennis shoe to start and then building up to more of a pro shoe as you get on, because the stiffness does change, obviously, as you go from that. And then rackets, I'll be honest, a lot of them it is the color wave. And yeah, I mean, look, we're all superficial to a certain extent. People talking already about the V10 blade that's out. Oh, I like the color more than the V9, and I'm like, come on, it's been more how it's playing. But no, I think it's the rackets are all very. You can almost get too hung up on rackets. I think it's good to try two or three, and then yeah, having that education of okay, this feels good, but why? If you start putting more topspin on your shots, you might want to have this racket or this string. So I think that education from our coaching team, our office team does help. And but I'd say most people, it's like how it looks is a big part too. So
Yes.
yeah, if it looks well and then plays well, then happy days.
That's awesome. So let's go to ratings because I think,
Yep.
in the US, there's, now the WTN and there's all kinds of pickleball ratings. How do you guys
Hmm.
do that in the UK when it comes to ratings?
Yeah, and it seems to change every couple of years. Similar, I think, with with pickleball or tennis. Everything seems to always change. So, I mean, generally for our coaching, we just keep it level 1 to level 6, and I think that's super simple. So when people come in, even if they've never competed before, they can find where they are on the spectrum. And then with spin and the local tennis leagues, they can get their own rating up, like the LTA ratings and so forth. But we go through the world tennis number in different variations. I try to keep out of it. Let spin and the LTA do that. But yeah, I think the simpler it is for people, the better. And that's one thing I really like about Duper for pickleball. I think it's super simple and it's a global kind of thing. So I think tennis, yeah, we try sometimes to make it too complicated. But I
One day
think
maybe we'll get there.
well, let's see. Let's see what next year brings. A new rating system.
For sure. So, what does racket and paddle sports look like in the UK right now? With pickleball, kind of, you hear it's kind of moving that way, and then paddle's been
Yeah.
in Europe for a long time. What does it look like for you
Yeah.
guys in the UK right now?
Yeah, I mean, paddle facilities they're growing massively. I think in the last 5 or 6 years, there's been hundreds and hundreds built across the UK. So we don't want to get into the position that I think it was the Sweden that they overbuilt and then suddenly the courts were empty and they've had to turn them back to tennis courts. But there's a big demand. I think it's really accessible to play. I love playing it. I'm absolutely addicted. If I want to compete now, I'd love to compete in paddle. And I think, we think about how many people from paddle can actually pick up a racket in the summer and maybe play both sports. So it might be rather than seeing it as competition, seeing it as complementing tennis. And then pickleball is a very different market, I guess, to the US. We're a lot more recreational in leisure centres still. There are some purpose-built facilities coming, but few and far between. But I think that's going to slowly change over time. And I think having some paddle and pickleball facilities, like, dual facilities, will be the way that we go. I'm not sure if you're aware, but UK has the least number of covered courts in the whole of Europe, even though we're not in Europe, but even around there. So I think if we can get some kind of racket sports that are covered, a multi-sports, a pickle and paddle venue, it's just going to add benefit and get people playing more. So I'm an advocate of just more is better, and more covered courts for sure. I think is only going to add more
Is
to
there
the UK.
is there an option to build more courts in the UK, or are you guys kind of landlocked at this point?
I think it's changing the way people are looking. So I think in the cities it's quite hard to build with the regulations and but even I know some companies are looking at airspace to buy the airspace to go on top of buildings. Because of if there's no land, we've got to look at different things. And then looking at kind of retail parks, kind of a bit like where Top Golf is and different things in there to actually put pickleball and paddle into those facilities where families go. But I think the airspace one is pretty cool. I'd love to play in a paddle venue that's like, 100 floors high with a rooftop bar. I think that's a different market, but a very cool market to look at.
Yeah. So you probably have thousands and thousands of players across so many locations. How do you
hmm
communicate with these players?
hmm Not all verbally, that would be impossible, but definitely through, I mean, again, it's streamlining communications. We obviously Court Reserve, just emailing through the app is super simple. The notifications that go through. And I think just keeping it clean that way. And I just think, if an email's coming, it comes from our central email. If an email's coming about a change of session, they know where it's coming from and where to look out for. I think we're gone are the days where things are going into spam for stuff like that. So we're trying to almost train people to, okay, you need to save this and then you won't miss it next time. But yeah, keeping it super simple. I think, the Court Reserve app is great to do. You can do global notifications for everything. And then, if it's more individual sessions, we can obviously email out them and SMS as well. We're going to be building that in soon. Because I don't know about you, but emails sometimes I'm like, oh my Lord, so many emails. Actually, I look at SMSs way more now and WhatsApps than emails.
Mhm.
So we'll
Yeah.
probably edge towards that way over time.
Yeah. We try and tell facilities use those things for the important stuff and then send your
Yeah.
weekly updates through emails
Yeah.
or things like
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
what do you think is going to get us more and more paddle and racket instructors over the next 5 and 10 years?
What's going to get us? Ooh, what's going to get us in? How we're going to get more people into paddle?
Yes. Or at any of our paddle and racket sports. How are we going
Yeah.
to continue to get instructors to want to become professional
Yeah.
instructors of all of us
Yeah.
sports that
Yeah.
we love?
Yeah, I mean, certifications are key. I think, getting them in an easy route for certifications. I think, PTR, I'm obviously head of PTR for the UK, and we've had such a big surge of people want to be certified in paddle and pickle. Obviously, tennis is always kind of rolling through and it always will, but it's refreshing to see some tennis people upskill into paddle and pickle, and also some new people maybe leaving, whatever industries they're in. And we look at AI, AI it's killing so many jobs, but actually that's opening the door. Well, if paddle's surging, if you've got a sporty city person that's been in finance for 10 years, great, like come into the paddle industry and he'll feel like a breath of fresh air. So I think, looking outside of the normal rackets market and thinking about, yeah, part-time coaches that want to come into the industry and again looking to certify them and get them through insured and ready to go. But I think when we're looking at sports, tennis is one of the few sports that people can have careers out of, and I think golf's the other one in the UK that you can make a living out of if you're a professional coach. So I think if we can get paddle and pickleball to that stage in the UK, then we're just going to have more jobs and more fun jobs for people to do.
I love that because, people are like, wow, how in the world did you and Tim grow court reserve? Day
Mm-hmm.
after day after day. It was lesson after lesson after
Yep.
lesson. Nobody
Yep.
teaches you how to build a company, right?
No, no, they don't. No, and I've got a few grey hairs, I'm sure you've done from that. But yeah, and I think that's where sometimes, I look back, I'm like, oh my God, how did this happen? And I'm sure you're the same, really.
Yes.
But you're always learning. I mean, every day I'm like, oh God, yeah, I need to kind of, 1% better, fix this, do this, learn this. And I think sometimes people wonder what a business owner does. And yeah, the answer is problem solve, make things better, and support. I would say those three things. It's like every day is different. It's
Yeah.
for me, I'm sure it's for you and Tim. I mean, it's a very different role.
Yeah, because we had different backgrounds before we actually came up with this idea of court reserve. And
Hmm.
so, but I believe what you said about bringing in people who have a
Yeah,
business background, a finance background,
yeah,
they're going to be great business owners, right? Or business
yeah,
partners because now they can
yeah,
run the business of tennis. Because
yeah,
we do see that in the US right now where you have people who have fallen in love with pickleball and they have
yeah,
money and so they've built a business but they don't know how to run a business, and
yeah,
so that brings challenges of its own. So what do you
yeah.
think's next for tennis at Merton in the next couple of years?
I want to see the court utilization and everything that we do just be bigger and better. So I think that's one part. I think tennis in Merton, tennis in Harrow, tennis, who knows, in China, tennis, I had tennis in Tampa. Somebody emailed me about that. I was like, okay, this could be interesting. But no, I think instead of scaling with width, I think it's scaling up and just, we've got we're interviewing for some trainees to come in, 4 new trainees to be trained on the coaching side and the off-court side in the next few months, which is super exciting. And yeah, I think I just want tennis in Merton especially to be the kind of everyone looks at us and think, oh God, that's a really good parks operator. They do everything. They've got career growth and yeah, they're kind of forward and ahead of the game. So yeah, I'm excited just to keep building and yeah, keeping learning myself. I guess that's the fun part too.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to spend time with you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, Ashley. Thank you.